A lot of people have the expectation that their first investment is going to be a single family home or a small multifamily property. Heather actually dove in headfirst and bought an RV park at the age of 26. Fast forward 10 years into the future, and now her portfolio is worth over $30 million. That's just absolutely unreal. Welcome back to another episode of How I Started. My name is Noah Bacon, and today I'm joined with Heather Blankenship. If you're worried that owning a campground is just not achievable for a rookie investor, let Heather be proof today that you can absolutely do it. And if you don't believe us, you can find out way more in her newest book, Real Estate Campgrounds. You can pre-order Real Estate Campgrounds before August 6th at BiggerPockets bookstore and get free bonuses at the link biggerpockets.com/campgroundbook. Heather, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Noah.
Absolutely. So like I said in the intro, we're zooming up here today. You're obviously a very successful investor, but the premise of our show here and the name of the show is obviously How I Started. So we want to reel back time a little bit and see how you got started. So can you tell us what you were doing 10 years ago and who you were and just set the scene for our audience a little bit?
It was over a decade ago, so it seems like another lifetime at this point. I was 26 years old and I was driving across the country in a camper from Florida to California. And while I was driving, I was staying at RV parks and I kept looking around thinking, oh my gosh, these things have got to be making a ton of money. It's just renting parking spots. How hard could it be? Side note, it is not renting parking spots. That would be if I'd bought a parking garage. We can talk about that later. But by the time I got to California, I had been Google searching RV parks for sale and campgrounds for sale in the area that I lived in, which was Tennessee. I found this RV park that was in bankruptcy. I called the bank and I was like, I want to buy this. And they were like, how much money do you have? I was like, I don't have any. And this was after the market had collapsed, because I know we said 10 years, was actually 13 years ago. So this was after the market had collapsed in 2008. So it was a few years later. And the bank still had this property sitting on their books, actually just operating it themselves. So banks are not in the business for operating properties and they just wanted to get rid of it. So they gave me a non-recourse loan. For those of you who don't know what that means, meaning like there's no repercussions, I can give it back with no money down for $3.2 million. And while you're thinking, oh my gosh, Heather got lucky, I had to quickly figure out how to run an RV park because the first payment was $18,500. And y'all, I had never had something more than like a normal rent payment of like $1,000 at the time. So this was like really freaking scary. I slept in the office floor for the first couple months, like trying to figure out how to run an RV park. I got pregnant with my first child. I have 5 kids now, the same month I bought the park. So I'm like pregnant, shoveling mulch and, running the park, trying to figure out how to make it work. If we fast forward now, I own RV parks, mobile home parks, Section 8 multifamily, and I've been able to do all of that by buying that first deal because I was able to refinance those properties. I'm sure y'all have talked a little bit about the Burr method on your show before. I was able to refinance that original property and purchase more because it went from $3.2 million in value to now being worth $13 million.
It's absolutely amazing, and thank you for setting the scene for us here and getting us even more sped up to what you're doing today a little bit. But let's just slow it down a little bit because you're the first campground investor that we've had. We've actually had another guest on the show that's done glamping before. So can you just tell us a little bit about what you were thinking about to get into campground investing and RV parks? Because it's a very niche investment source that you've obviously found a lot of success in. So can you just tell us what you were thinking about at that time to really get you into RV parks and why that was going to be your first step as a rookie investor?
It's funny that you ask that because I know the viewers are meant to be beginners who are figuring out how to get started. And I will tell y'all, if you're watching this, you are so much further ahead than I was when I got started because I didn't even know I was buying real estate. I just knew that it was some kind of business that sounded like it was going to be fun. And I've since learned that RV parks are real estate and a business combined, which is what make them such a great asset class because they're both cash flow and appreciation because of that. I was thinking, how could it go wrong? It's literally located right next to Dollywood, which is in Tennessee. And Dollywood is our version of Disney World. And so it's a huge tourist attraction. It's in Pigeon Forge, which is right next to Gatlinburg. And if they're not familiar with that, the #1 visited national park in the country is there. So I just kept thinking with this location, how could it go wrong? I can figure this out. There's so many people who figured this out. I can figure this out.
Absolutely, and you just hit the nail on the head for a lot of our audience. It's supply and demand, basically. You have very few national parks, and now you're going to supply housing there for a lot of people to come and rent from me and put their RVs at my campground. So can you break down that first deal for us? I know you just said that it was valued at 3.2 when you first bought it. It's obviously had a massive appreciation over the years, but can you tell me how you found the deal, how you structured it, and if there's different loan options and things like that that went into it that are just, not familiar to the normal 30-year mortgage and things like that?
So like I said, I was Google searching and found it because RV parks aren't really on the MLS because they're a commercial real estate. They aren't, like a single family home, or sometimes you might see a duplex or something like that on the MLS. So they have specific websites you can find them on. While the traditional Crexi or LoopNet, where people find commercial properties, do sometimes have deals on them, you're going to find these on niche websites like RVParkstore.com, Campground Connections, or Parks and Places, just to name a few. So Google searching, those things popped up when I was looking for this property. As far as loan options go, you're not going to get that traditional mortgage in your name that you're used to getting for like a single family home or duplex or something like that. Usually you're going to get a commercial loan, and you can actually get SBA loans with this. I don't know that I recommend those. They take a really long time to go through the process, but your local bank or credit union is really going to be your best resource for this. And when I say local bank, I don't mean like your local location of Wells Fargo or Chase Bank. I mean like a local or regional bank that only has, lending parameters in your area. And building a relationship with a bank like that can be a really huge positive thing for your investing career. Because if you pay your payments on time and build that relationship with them, oftentimes you can get loans that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get. So those types of relationships are great.
That's absolutely great advice. And I want to go back just to a little bit earlier when you said when I bought this place, I was actually sleeping on the floor for the first couple nights. Is RV investing or campground investing, is it a more passive investment lever that you've seen, or is it extremely active? As, like you said, I had to sleep on the floor the first couple nights, probably had to do a lot of things that you just weren't exposed to coming into it as a rookie investor. So can you talk to us about how on the, threshold of active to passive it kind of is?
That's a great question because it was so funny when I used to run the park myself. The first 6 years, I was the operator. And now I live 900 miles away from all of my properties and have staff for that. But I would always have these people come in the office when they were checking in and they would be like, when I retire, I want to own an RV park. And I would just, in my head, laugh to myself and be like, dude, this is not a retirement job. And so depending on your goals and how much money you have is going to depend on the level of which it's passive. So you can absolutely hire a team and have them run the property for you and manage from a distance. You probably need to know a little bit about your property. If you're just starting out, I would definitely recommend you're there for the first 4 to 6 weeks to kind of learn the property in and out so that you know how to oversee your staff. The book also gives tons of guidance on operations. So if that's something you're thinking about, you really need to hone in on those points in the book. And then obviously you need a budget to be able to do that. But if you're thinking, oh my gosh, I don't have a ton of money, I want to buy a distressed property and increase the value of it, just like Heather did, so that I get all this forced appreciation and can buy more properties, then you're probably going to want to be the operator yourself, which means you're going to need to be close. I would recommend being at no further than an hour from the property, because going back and forth, whether it's daily or a couple times a week, maybe once a week, whatever your decision is there. So the passive versus active really depends on what you're looking for. It is not mailbox money. Oftentimes I hear mobile home parks and RV parks compared, and they are not apples to apples. I own in both asset classes and they're very different. Mobile home parks are definitely that mailbox money, pretty passive. RV parks are outdoor hospitality. They're like running a hotel outside. And if you think about a hotel, guests checking in, checking out, hey, I need something cleaned, what's going on with the pool, all these different things that are going on. It's not near as passive as something like that, but the cash flow makes up for it.
It's an amazing way that you put that. And I don't think a lot of investors think about how different that the two, investment levers can be for RV parks and for mobile homes, like you said. It is the hospitality side of things. And I'm sure you're going to have a lot of tips and tricks in your book for those. Why do you think that this asset class is so overlooked?
I think for a couple reasons. There didn't used to be good lending options for RV parks. You couldn't find your typical Fannie Freddie loans for RV parks. And so it wasn't necessarily an option for everybody. And there's definitely become more lending options, and people have gotten more familiar with asking for those creative financing options. 88% of RV parks are still owned by mom and pop, and those institutions are starting to creep in, meaning those like REITs and mutual funds and people who own, thousands of units, they're starting to buy them. That's been happening for probably the last 5 years. That's starting to happen. In today's market, you can still get these for a really great price, which isn't necessarily the case for something like a mobile home park or an apartment complex, because that already happened with the institutions. If you've been looking for deals and you find the owner's name on it, it's not going to be, Bob and Sue. It is some joint venture, blah, 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 LLC, instead of, mom and pop. And it's actually a really great opportunity because normal people like us can't typically compete with those institutions. So when you're trying to buy, whether it's a small apartment complex or maybe a self-storage facility, that can get a lot more competitive. So while that's started to happen, there's still time to buy them. And then if you're not wanting to hold forever, it gives you a good exit opportunity. Meaning when you're wanting to sell someday, as those institutions start to buy things, we talk about in the book how you can buy a property with the end in mind, buying it thinking someday I'm going to want to exit for a lot of money to one of these institutions. So make sure you're looking for properties that meet these criteria.
Do you think this would still be in today's market a good avenue for a rookie investor to pursue their first investment?
I think this is a great avenue for a rookie investor. And the reason I think that is because you kind of have to go all in and jump in with both feet, because it's not like buying a single family home or a duplex where it takes an hour or two of your time a month, if that. And it's kind of in the back of your mind and on the sidelines. And once you save some more money or you find another good deal, you might buy your second one. So it isn't like you've gone all in. With something like this, because it's going to cost more money and it's going to be significantly more active, you are forced to focus on it. Think about when you go all in on something. You eat, sleep, and breathe it. You learn everything you can about it. You put all your time and energy into it. And when you really work hard on something like that, it's always more successful than something that's just kind of on the back burner or to the side that you're thinking about it. It's kind of the difference in being like, yeah, I think I'd like to work out and go on a diet, and like maybe I'll start out with going for a walk every day. Like your process is going to be a lot slower than if you were like, I'm doing 75 hard, let's make it happen now. So it's kind of the equivalent of being like, dude, screw it, let's do 75 hard.
Let's fast forward to today then, because like you said, we're at a really massive appreciation. Your portfolio has grown like a wildfire over your 10 years of investing. So what have you done after the RV park, and what are you doing today?
Yeah, I've gone a little bit different route than some of the people I've talked to recently. Every time I talk to somebody, they're like, how many investors do you have? I'm the only owner for my portfolio, and I've just continued to scale that way. I don't think there's anything wrong with having outside investors or raising money. We all have different routes that we take. But for me, I would rather have the slow and steady peace of mind without a bunch of people to report to and answer to. Like I said earlier, I have 5 kids and they're all homeschooled. So my main priority is to be a present mom at this point in my life. And scaling that way has given me that financial freedom for my family. And financial freedom looks different for all of us. And in different phases of life, you can be in that growth phase. You can be in a phase where your goal is to stay home and be mom. And so as of right now, that's where I'm at.
Heather, a question that I ask every guest on the show is, if a rookie investor was in your shoes today, where you were 10 years ago, what's one golden nugget or one piece of advice that, man, I wish I had that before I got started, or man, I wish somebody would have just told me that before I really got into this thing? Is there anything that you can share that you learned a little bit into your journey that an investor today that would be in your shoes could be like, yeah, I'll take that advice and absolutely run today and go find my first RV park, and it was because of what Heather told me?
One of the biggest tips I can give a new investor, whether it's RV parks or whatever asset class you decide to invest in, or even building a business, literally just being an entrepreneur is about consistency and continuing to try. I have people all the time on social media ask me like, I feel like I'm failing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, how long have you been doing this? And they're like, 6 months. And I'm like, okay, you're not failing. You're just giving up too soon. And so if I could tell them anything, it would be don't give up. I used to have this quote on my wall when I had a W-2 job that said, never give up, never give in, and don't take no for an answer. And really sticking with that, not giving up and continuing to push and try. And I don't mean like if something's not working to keep going. What else can you do? how else can you try? There's always another solution. Keep trying and trying and trying. That kind of failing forward mentality is how you're going to become successful.
That's amazing advice, Heather, and I can't thank you enough for your time here today. And if you're looking to learn more about Heather, you can find that information in the show notes below, and you can actually pre-order her book, Real Estate Campgrounds. If you order the book before August 6, 2024, you get free bonuses using the link biggerpockets.com/campgroundbook. And I'm Noah Bacon. You can find me on the BiggerPockets website if you search my name. We have millions of resources on how to get started, and we'll be sharing plenty of more episodes just like Heather's on how you can get your first property. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the Real Estate Rookie channel. We'll be sharing plenty of more stories just like Heather's on how you can get started. Thank you very much, and see you next time.